Good morning. This is Angela Coulter, originator of Trinity Energy Progression, Consciousness Transformation Guide, and bringing you Living the Shift for this week. So I'm really excited because it is my birthday week, and what a great time! And I'm turning 50, and I'm pretty excited about that. So it's actually my birthday month that I've been celebrating. And if you want to listen more about that, you can listen to last week's podcast or live stream. So what a great time then to hit on the topic of age, ageism, age, how we perceive age, aging, and all that kind of stuff, because it's been actually a topic that's been coming up with a lot of people lately. And there are a lot of misconceptions about what we consider age and aging. There are a lot of things that we think are fact, but there are in fact perception that we create in reality. And so, it's funny because so many people have, asked 10 different people about the concept of turning 50, right? Which is what I'm turning on Saturday. And you get like 10 different responses. So people don't know. What's really funny too is that we're all aware of that because people are not sure how to, right? Perfect timing, Regina says. Yeah, so people ask, this kind of thing, and they also hesitate to wait to see what your response is. Oh, you're turning 50. They don't know whether that's gonna be great or awful, whatever. And I'm just like, it's just a number. Honestly, it's a number. And I'll tell you, the more that I have explored expanded consciousness, the more that I have seen from the bigger picture, from our higher selves of collective consciousness and divine consciousness, the more I realize that age is only connected to time, which is just a construct that we've created here in the 3D to measure in terms of relativity and separation and all that kind of stuff. So, I always laugh. I always laugh about the whole age thing. So think about these things, because these are just little mind benders that have come to me over, time. So in the Star Wars movies, if you've seen them, at some point when Yoda, one of the Jedi masters, dies, they say, I can't even remember how many years they say how old he is, right? They say, oh, he's 900 some odd years old, or I can't even remember what it was. Might be more than that. So here's the question. Say it was 930 years old. By what measure? Yoda doesn't live on Earth. Yoda has lived all over the, universe and different galaxies and stuff. So how can age be measured if you have no measurement of time? So see what I'm talking about, relativity? So like a year here on Earth is much different than, say, a year on Mercury, which is a much faster year. We measure about going around the sun, right, as our central time relation. And then if we say Uranus or Neptune or Jupiter, they have a much different year than what we do here on Earth. And then, just think about going to different parts of the multiverse. There might not be any measurement of time. I've had perceptions. It's funny. I guess you'd call it a past life regression. I was actually training a friend of mine how to do past life regressions, and I had her do one on me. And I went to a regression, right? I went to this other part of the whole multiverse where it was a completely different existence, and she's asking me these questions about, well, how old are you? And how long? I'm just like, I don't even know what you're talking about, because there is no old, there is no time. So when we start from that perception, when we start from that understanding, time is relative. We then can look at age in a much different light, because age is relative as well. So, for example, one time I was having this discussion with, I think it was my husband, and I had this concept that came to me from a much higher perception about my cats and my animals, right? And I was just thinking, wow, we go through this cycle, we get these pets, and, when they're kittens or puppies, and then they live their lives, and then they die, and then we're heartbroken. And yet it's a moment. It's just a moment. And we're never apart because it's just an illusion and all that kind of stuff. But my husband said to me, so, actually, so in the eyes of your pets, you're immortal. And I said, that's a pretty good concept. I don't think they're consciously aware of that, but yeah, because they feel like you're always been there, you're always going to be there after, before they came and after they go. And if you look at it from our perspective, from our mind's perspective here on Earth, that would be considered immortal, right? So we look at these different like movies where people are 15,000 years old or 10,000 years old. And again, I go back to years and what are we talking about? Because it's usually like nobody else in the multiverse is going to be measuring time in the way that we do because it's very specific to Earth. And we've changed it in many cases over the eons. So Regina says, hi, Yoda and cats, I can relate. Yeah, so there's just a lot of different things. So what's really funny is how hung up we are on age, right? And we have made age and aging in our physical bodies here on Earth. We've made it a punishment in many respects. We've made it something to fear, right? And I think it's partially because many still have a collective fear of dying and death. And that has so many beliefs around it, right? So if we say, okay, so I'm going to live 100 years, right? Some people will say the moment you're born, you're dying, right? Because you're going through the cycle of what your physical presence is going to be here, which is true. So it's no different on day one than day whatever, 10,000. And so we have all these things, and so we get hung up, but we have all these cultural expectations, and we put so much energy to what we believe is the curse of aging. And I think it's really sort of funny because I was talking about this with somebody the other day, and they were talking about they're in their 20s, and they were talking about their mother and how their mother's only a couple years older than me, and she acts a lot older. And she always complains about how old she is and how her body is so old and all this kind of stuff. And I happen to know this woman, and I think she's actually really active. She takes Zumba. She does a lot of different things. And yet she's constantly, talking about that. I'm in Kung Fu, and there's a man in there who has been doing martial arts as long as I have. And he's going to be turning 60 this year. And he constantly, funny enough, is as smoothly moving as he is, as well versed in the martial arts that he is, and as well as he moves, he's always complaining or making these comments about, oh, well, I'm losing my mind, losing my facilities, getting old. And I said to him, finally, one day we were actually going through black belt conditioning last month, and it was killer. It was killer. So we're all having to go through thousands of kicks and punches in like an hour to 2 hour period. And he was standing in front of me, and he kept on saying stuff about that. And I said, I think it's really funny that you talk about this all the time. I said, because you're going to be 60, right? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, and how many people do you know that are even 35 or 30 that could even be doing what we're doing right now? Just because they haven't had the activity and the practice and everything else. And he's like, yeah, I know, you're right. That's true. And I said, so why do you put yourself down all the time? And the way you say it is in a way that makes you seem like you're putting yourself down, that you're getting old, right? And I'm like going, okay, well, if getting old is turning 60 and being, a second degree black belt in Kung Fu with other disciplines, and martial arts, and being really active and being able to do some of the things that we have to do in class and everything, I'm like, I don't know, that's really pretty good, pretty awesome. I said, what if you thought that for every kick and punch that we're doing here in this organized torture, we were joking around, and I said, is every kick and punch makes you younger. Everything we do, keeps us timeless, So when I started doing this work, when I started doing the energy work and spiritual work or whatever, and I started looking at things outside of space and time, I realized that age is something that we have so imparted on ourselves, right? There's been so much research that shows, like now that we do all this DNA research, genetic research and everything, that our genes say that our cells, our bodies could potentially live forever. It's what we expose ourselves to that cause our bodies to age, to wither away and die and whatever. And it's part of the evolution of being a part of this planet and everything else. And by the way, it's all the toxins we expose ourselves to. It's and more than anything though, it's the beliefs underneath all of it. It's the beliefs that we hold that we have to get old. It's beliefs that we hold that we have to start showing age. And it becomes a way for us to rationalize things away. Oh, I'm just getting old. Instead of saying, well, let's look at all this stuff. Well, here's the thing. Why do we age? From the day we're born here on this planet, we take on stuff. We take on energetic things. That's part of the lessons and set of lessons that we've chosen. But as we go, we can choose to hold the baggage and drag it along with us from day one, and actually before that in other lifetimes and whatever. But we sometimes we drag a big sack of stuff into this life with us. And then from that day, we just move forward and we drag it in. And as we move forward, everything we do, like experiences, anything with resistance, sadness, pain, or whatever, we can choose to carry that, or we can choose to let it go. The more we choose to carry, the heavier it gets, the more strain it puts on our physical bodies. Now think about that. Think about if you were pulling forward a 4,000-pound sack your entire life every day. Would it make you strong? Yes. Would it tire you out? Yes. Would it probably start aging your body? Absolutely. Well, it's what it does. So part of the whole aging thing is how much we're holding in our bodies and in beliefs, not only in beliefs, but also, that we have to carry the beliefs that we have to carry things forward instead of just being present and creating in the now. When we say, okay, well, I'm going to let go of everything. I accept everything is perfect as part of the divine plan, the bigger picture. And we just say, okay, what if I just live presently now? Then our age starts to disappear. Like any kind of gauge of age starts to disappear. And I've noticed that those of us who I know who've spent a lot of time and focus on this, on finding that presence, on finding living in the now, on releasing the beliefs that I have to age, that I have to be older, act older, be decrepit because I'm a certain age or anything like that, or be limited because I'm a certain age. The more we let go of that, the more we become ageless. And that's really sort of the goal is, okay, well, become ageless, where somebody looks at you and says, I have no idea how old you are. And I've gotten that a lot in the past several years. But the thing is, it's just age. It's just a number. It's just something we assign to measurement, right? How many times I've been on this planet as it circles the sun in this body, right? What if we said, if we come from the perception that our souls are eternal, which I do, that our consciousness is eternal, and that this is but a blip on a blip on a blip on a blip, then what does even matter? We put so much weight into age and numbers, right? That we think somebody who's 2 years old is at a deficit to somebody who's 70 years old. When in reality, my experience in working with the souls of those who are all different ages, it's no different, because we're all the same. We're all from the same divine consciousness. That's how I work and understand. So when you do that, you stop seeing things through the filter of age. I have a really challenging time because I stopped trying to judge people based on age when I started doing all this work. And I started looking at, I have friends that are in their 20s all the way through their late 70s. I have a friend who I always laugh and say that I want to be her when she grows up. I want to be her when I grow up. I don't think she's grown up yet either. But, she and I go hiking together. We've, we did a trip to Sedona together. We're hiking in the mountains and everything else. And she's turning 79 next month. She's older than my mother. And she acts more spry and chipper than most 30-year-olds that I know. And you would not ever know, although people always think that she and I are mother-daughter because she has the same color hair as me. But anyway, it's funny. It's funny because It's what we choose to do with it. And as I was talking last week, my friend Anne, who was on, I don't think she's on this morning, but she's 65 and she's just, what things happen. Yeah. Okay. So things happen. And part of it is she's learned to attribute it to shifting versus aging. And she just picks herself up, like, okay, let's adjust this, let's support this. And I'm going to pick myself up, dust myself off, and move myself forward. And she doesn't stop. She goes whitewater rafting. She does, lots of hiking. She sails. And she's always doing something. So it's really funny. We have this perception in our culture, right? We want to avoid aging, right? Aging is bad. Well, number one, that's a judgment. And so then we try to avoid something, which means that we're scared of it and we have fear. So then we put all this energy to avoiding it. And instead of that, what if we said, let me look at the root cause of why I'm aging, why my body, my cells, my mind believes that I have to age this way, that I have to change this way. And so, like I said, when we start looking at that stuff energetically, we start seeing things from a much different perspective of saying, well, okay, so you're holding this weight, you're holding this baggage, you're carrying this forward, you believe you have to hold on to it because of age, quote unquote, because of your family, because of so many different elements that we have expressed, and it's become a part of our culture. Like, it's so funny because I hear people my age all the time talk about, oh, well, this body isn't what it used to be and everything else. And I'm like, okay, but did you torture it when you were younger? Did you not treat it as a temple? Did you not nurture it? Are you still holding on to that? Are you still holding on to the injuries and the lessons that you feel like you haven't finished from that? Because that'll still hold strong in your muscles, right? What I think is amazing, and we talk about this a lot in martial arts, is there's so many martial artists, especially in Kung Fu, because Kung Fu is all about body, mind, and spirit. And there's a lot of meditation involved and all this kind of stuff. So there's those who are the masters that have been doing it for many, many, many years. They are limber and rock solid and might have depleted physically or whatever, but they are just about the most amazing people that you're ever going to meet. And we so focus on, like I said, we're so focused on this whole avoidance of aging that we've lost sight of what if we changed our whole perception about aging, about what it's supposed to be, about what if we existed without aging? What if we allowed ourselves to do that? Many of us don't want to do that. Many of us, as many as who are afraid of death, because I don't want to say we, because I'm actually not afraid of death, but as many as who are afraid of death, we are also afraid of living eternally. And I've had this conversation even with my husband, who one time we were watching some movie and people, I don't know, somebody there, I can't remember. I think it was Jupiter Rising was the movie, where they were fighting over Earth because it was the source of this thing that would help these other beings live to be like 15,000 years old, which is funny. Again, 15,000 on what scale? Are they measuring it on Earth scale? Why would somebody in a different galaxy be measuring time on the scale of Earth? It just makes no sense. So, so Virginia says, you definitely are ageless. I wouldn't have guessed we're close in age. I'm 51 and thought you were in your late 30s. Only this year have I thought about age and questioning myself. I feel no different than I ever have, but yet I feel like I should start doing lower impact old people activities. No, don't do it, Regina. Do what your heart tells you to do. And you know what? It's funny because part of what, people say, well, my body's not what it used to be and everything else. And that's because we've taken on these toxins. We don't treat the body like the temple that it is, the temple that holds the divine consciousness that we are in this embodiment. And that would mean being clear energetically, right? Being present, not carrying this stuff forward with us and not toxifying ourselves, right? And so people say, well, you can't help it. It's all around us. And I'm like, except that's an illusion too. And we can ultimately get to a place where we can transcend that. But in the meantime, we can align our thought, word, and deed into, and thank you, Regina, for saying that. I'm definitely ageless. But what if we just started stop focusing on age and just started focusing on, okay, so how do I become present and fully in a place of love and in a place of, and I feel like the more that we do this, the more that we focus on self-love, self-nourishment, presence, clearing our mind of this chatter of the ego and the mind and the worry and the fear. Because when we do that, we're carrying that sack forward with us. We're adding more weight to it, which then makes it more tedious to us physically, mentally, and emotionally, right? So the more we let go of that which holds us back, the more we are present from a place of love and bliss, the more we become ageless. And it doesn't matter what age you are when you start or when you expand on it. I believe that we can just shift. And I've seen people, because honestly, I've stopped seeing, like I said, I've stopped seeing people like by their age or judging them by what I guess would be their age, because I can't even guess. Because the more I live in energy, the more I live from the focus of being divine and in consciousness, the more I see others as that as well. And I only see their eternal self. I don't really see their physical body. So it's so funny how many have said things to me in sessions where I'm like, oh, I would never notice. I never noticed. Like there was a woman one time I was working with, and I had known her for a while and thought she was a fabulous woman, beautiful, emanating this amazing energy. I've known her in other lifetimes, all that kind of stuff. And she came and had a session with me once, and she was talking about how she hated herself. She hated what she saw in the mirror. She thought she was dumpy and everything else. And I was like, I just couldn't understand what she was saying. She goes, furthermore, you know, when I talk to people, I think all they're staring at is the scar on my face. And I will tell you that I had known her for probably 5 or 6 years at that point, and I had never, ever seen the scar on her face until the day she pointed it out to me. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. And so if you think about all that, it's like we worry about, oh, well, I can't do this because of my age, or how will this look? Who cares? If your heart tells you to do it, then do it. And yeah, okay, our bodies, physical bodies, are built differently to address the lessons that we have personally chose to experience in this lifetime. So do some of us have handicaps? Absolutely. And there's always a purpose for having them. We have so many different things, and so that we can overcome, we can change, and that's all part of letting go of all of that sack that we're dragging forward with us constantly. And as I said, the more Jana, I've been looking forward to getting older so I can take naps and no one will question me. Guess what? I've been taking naps for 12 years now. Like, I take them pretty regularly. And I always, because guess what, by the way, they say that our biorhythms of our bodies naturally are such that it is healthy for us to take naps. But I will say that my young adult kids take naps too, because I've always told them, if you take a short nap, actually, if your body tells you that you need to take a nap, you take a nap. I mean, as long as you don't sleep for 4 hours, you know, in the middle of the day. Like, I literally will, like, if I take a nap, it's a lot of times at the end of the day, 4:30ish or 5 if I don't have any sessions going on. And I will literally set my timer on my phone for like 35 minutes. And I set my intention of, okay, so I will be completely refreshed and revived and revitalized and, you know, fully vibrant in the 35 minutes that I'm taking this nap. And I do all the time. But they've shown that biochemically, our bodies are actually, they really benefit from taking naps. So it's funny, again, we have these things that we think only old people are supposed to do. Or, and so I started taking naps when I left corporate in 2006. And so that time when I was like 38 years old, right? And that was because I started an herb nursery, and I had 3 huge commercial greenhouses that I had to tend to every day by myself, pretty much. And I had so like 7,500 square feet of greenhouse space, and I had like 2,500 square feet of bed space outside that I took care of on my own. And so in the summertime in North Carolina, it's really challenging to work in a greenhouse in the middle of summer. So what would happen, it would be exhausting because I would literally get up at like 4:30 in the morning, and I would have a lot of physical labor, and I would be working in the greenhouses often until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which is pretty hot in the summertime in North Carolina. And so I would, do what I needed to do. I would harvest the herbs I needed to harvest. I would, get them ready for delivery. And then I would either deliver and then come back and take a nap, or I would nap and then go deliver them. That kind of stuff, but that was like starting to honor the rhythms of our bodies. And I think part of what we do is we don't learn the value of our bodies, or we don't realize them usually until later. Culturally, we don't realize it, because you know what we do? We write off being young to being sort of like bouncy, right? And I think part of the reason we're bouncy is because we haven't tortured ourselves physically yet, or taken on all those toxins and all that kind of stuff. Except today we're having a lot of problems with the youth because they don't have healthy lifestyles. They don't, exercise. They don't eat healthy. They're ingesting a lot of toxins. They're putting themselves in the way of a lot of toxins. They have a lot of mental disconnection, which is causing a lot of weight into that sack that they're carrying forward at a really early age. So then they're getting weighed down at a much earlier age. And so then they're having a lot of physical issues, things that we never saw in people under like the age of 50 before. And it has nothing to do with age. It has to do with how they live. So if we started teaching children from an early age about presence, about mindfulness, about how to live in the moment, how to live from a place of love, how to process things transcendent to the ego, and to see things from unity versus separation, that is actually a much healthier lifestyle. Now they have what they call the blue zones in the world, right? And the blue zones are places where I think it's like the most amount of people live to be over 100 years old, right? And so they've done these studies, sociological studies, to start talking about looking at why are they living older? And many of the people who live there have simpler lives, are more active, they eat natural organic stuff, they don't eat a whole lot of processed foods, they have some kind of like a cultural like meditation or a way of life where they have presence, they have the opportunity for presence, for peace, for simplicity and presence, because that all sort of equals the same thing. And so, that's really consistent pretty much across the board in those blue zones. So it goes to show you it's this way of, and I believe that we could live an even much longer life once we realized how powerful we are in terms of our own creation, in terms of our own healing and shifting. And by the way, when we live from this whole lifestyle where we are really honoring and nourishing ourselves as the divine and each other, then we stop doing things that are detrimental to us naturally, and then we will naturally live longer. We won't get sick that much. We won't get the cancers. We won't get the chronic illnesses, because we're not, chronic illnesses, sicknesses, all that kind of stuff. Those are things that we carry forward in the sack until the point becomes that the sack becomes unbearable to carry forward, and then it manifests as something physical in our bodies. So the goal goes back to the beginning, which is so funny. Is it's like I get the roll of the eyes all the time, is when we come from a place of self-nourishment. And this is what I'm doing this whole month. I started a group here. So anybody who's not in it, who's watching this or watches this, come and join. It's called Ways to Celebrate Me. I started that group this month because it's for my birthday, my celebrations. I've committed to 50 ways to celebrate me this entire month. Plus it's a love month, right? It's the month that we call Valentine's Day, and I call why not focus on loving and celebrating ourselves, and realizing that, by the way, the more we celebrate and love ourselves, the more things roll easily, and the more we are apt to just share and love and help one another. And it's contrary to what our logic believes. But when we do things like when we give and share and nourish others from a place of loving and nourishing ourselves and not obligation, obligation has a huge weight to it and it weighs us down. And so when we come from a place of love and nourishment and sharing, because I have so much to give that I'm overflowing, then it takes so much pressure off and so much about aging off of our plates. And we can take that excuse right off. And all we do is enjoy the moment, and we can enjoy each other and ourselves. And I swear this whole planet would just shift in a moment in terms of like where we are energetically. So that's what I want you to do this week, is listen to what you say about yourself and about others in terms of aging. I posted this, I know I'm at 30 minutes, so I want to tie this up, but I posted this video sometime in the past couple of weeks, and I thought it was great, where they had people look at different, people or celebrities or just different people of different ages. And they said, okay, I want you to make a comment about everybody you see. And I want you, at the end of that comment, I want you to say for her or his age, right? So, she's beautiful for her age. He's strapping for his age, right? He's this or she's that, or like, and they kept on doing all that. And they said, okay, so people were pretty comfortable about doing that, right? And then they said, okay, so now say at the end of that, at the end of any comment you say about a person on the video that you're seeing being shown pictures of, say, instead of for their age, say for being Asian, for being Black, for being blank. And they looked really shocked when they were told that. And they're like, well, see, it's the same thing. We're making judgments and we are being biased from people. We're using age as an excuse and a separation and an exclusion. And I find it really interesting culturally that I was saying this to the person that I was talking about earlier that was talking about their mom, who's only a couple years older than me, who acts a lot older and complains about being old and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, what I find fascinating is there are many indigenous cultures that really value their elders, right? And that the older you are, you're considered wiser, stronger, more of a foundation for the tribe or the community. But we're not like that in the United States. And many what we call first world countries are not that way. In fact, it's just the opposite. The older you get, the more you get written off. And the less you can get a job, the more it's like, just go in the closet, go to the nursing home, don't bother me. And they're expected to be sick and helpless and weak. I mean, that's what we do in our culture. And look at all of the stuff. Look at all the verbiage and language that we have built around all of that we have instilled beliefs in our society and in our people and in our physical bodies that's what we're supposed to do. And I said, well, so I sort of don't understand, though, if that's the way our culture is, because it is, right? And we do all this stuff, and we have plastic surgery, and we have all of these products to prevent you from aging. But we are in such a rush to get old and decrepit because we start talking about things like, oh, I'm so old and my body's not what it used to be. And it's like, well, actually, how's this? But your body is different now than it used to be, probably because of the torture you've put on it. Residual. Carry that big sack. And I'm not even just talking about physical. I'm talking about mental, emotional, baggage you've carried with you and let weigh you down and all kind of stuff. But it's funny because we have all this verbiage and cultural expectations, and it's like we want to hurry up and get old, but then we complain that the old are discounted. Like, I can't tell you, I've known several people in my immediate family who had issues coming up, and they were young, older people, right? My grandmother was in her 80s. My father was in his 70s and had stuff coming up that could have been changed, could have been helped. But the doctors just said, oh, well, you're in your 80s. Why bother? I'm like, what? that, or 70s, even 70s. So we do that, but yet we're in such a hurry to get old, which is funny because I'm like, okay, well, I could see it in a culture where we revere the elderly, like, because there are cultures like that still exist. But it's like, why are we then creating more baggage for ourselves by hurrying into another phase? That just doesn't even make sense. To make ourselves more limited, why would we do that? Why instead would we not say, I am vibrant? I don't care what age I am vibrant. My goal is to be present and loving and vibrant and have so many experiences. And I feel like turning 50, I am just starting the really free part of my life. My kids are in young adulthood, and we're on the verge of, we're going to be moving soon, sometime in the next foreseeable future. And we're just deciding, well, so what's next? Now we're free. We can go traveling, and like my business is like a lot of traveling. It's a lot of, and I love that stuff. I love going different places and trying new things. And, I have my scuba license and, doing the martial arts thing. And I want to get my pilot's license, and there's like, well, what else can I do? Now I'm at this place where I'm like, what else can I do? I'm like slowing down. I'm just getting started. So it's all a matter of where we are in our consciousness to say, you know what? I am free from that baggage. I'm going to commit myself to being present and accepting where I am right now. And so that I can be free to explore the total limits. Well, actually, no limits. I could explore beyond limits without, being transcendent to any limits. That which, there are people that I love, and I see stuff and I try to post as much as I can that are just doing that every day. The 100-year-old marathon runner lady who I just adore. And there's like this 80-year-old like bodybuilder woman who's just like amazing, and it's like, great. When we say I can just do this and we stop using age as an excuse or a limitation or a handicap, and we just say, you know what? I am a divine being and I have an infinite ability and I can be present as long, when I come to that place of self-nourishment, self-love, self-acceptance, resolution of the stuff that I've been carrying along in that sack, and not listening to what others tell me, not listening to what commercials tell me or what others, our culture tells me about aging and a number that is completely irrelevant in the scheme of higher consciousness. It doesn't even exist. It is celebrating the full eternal being that we are in every moment. And if we commit to taking baby steps and starting to nourish and celebrate ourselves and start saying, you know what, I'm awesome, not for my age, I'm just awesome, right? It makes us much more conscious. So be conscious of your language. Regina says, oh my God, I just said the same exact thing on Instagram. Everybody was commenting on how beautiful this lady was for her age. I told her she was beautiful, period. Not for her age or anything else, just beautiful inside and out. Thank you for this live cast. You're right. Oh, thank you, Regina. Thank you for your comments too, because I love that we're all getting to the same place. I love that we're all doing this, but it's really this, a lot of this stuff, it seems really mundane that I talk about, but it's all in support, thought, word, and deed, and higher consciousness and unity and wholeness. And when we listen to our own words, right, and we stop saying things like for your age, right, or for her age, or for his age, or oh, because of my age, or, I can't, or I have to because of my age. I'm like, you know what? It's so funny. Is like, I look at so many people and it's like, they are letting themselves break down around me who are younger than me. And I'm going, well, there are many things you can do to support that differently. And the first place it starts is within you. So listen to your words, listen to your thoughts, and change them. Take about the for my age, and any thought about getting old or old with this body, and listen to your comments about that, even in jest, because even in jest, when we say it, we do create. So, and commit yourself to just releasing, like being transcendent, resolving all of that so that you can just be present as an eternal being, that the years that show up and the measurement of being in an earth body are completely irrelevant to the amazing awesomeness that you are. So that's it for this week. Thank you for joining me. This is a great topic, and there's so much. And I'm like I said, if you haven't already joined, come and join my group, Ways to Celebrate Me. And I love, because I just committed to the 50 things for me. And what I love is everybody's getting really psyched, and they're starting to talk about the way they celebrate themselves and looking for ways to celebrate themselves in just this nourishing, and that's that nourishing way. And that's where we start. So come and join it. Ways to Celebrate Me. I'll probably end up like extending this past February because it's really an awesome exercise, and it's just a great way to expand our consciousness from a very, very elementary level. So have a great week. We'll see you next time. This is Angela Coulter signing off on Living the Shift. Thanks.